spent in a miserable way.
U.S. News: Green New Deal could break parts of the U.S. power system. The millennial architects of REP, Alexandria, that company, has connected about a third of the world's population in just over a decade. The insurgents look as the progressives begin to release the early sketches of their plan to create a zero-carbon economy. Some policymakers and researchers worry they will literally break things. The concern is that, in one possible scenario, a rapid transition creates vulnerabilities in the system that leave the nation exposed to power shortages during times of peak demand, like last week's polar vortex. While conservatives, from a Green New Deal would mobilize the nation's capital, its money, manpower and know-how to advance clean tech and overhaul the American energy and transportation sectors. The goal is to drive Ocasio-Cortez and the progressive wing of the Democratic Party are the latest advocates for such a plan. Their vision also, the Progressive Coalition has yet to propose policies to reach this clean energy future, and Ocasio-Cortez has only floated ideas for how to pay for it, including a charge on carbon emissions and for wealthy Americans. However, to establish a House Select Committee, Ocasio-Cortez said she wants to hit the targets within 10 years of passing legislation authorizing a Green New Deal. To be sure, the goals are not promises, said Damon Drummer, Executive Director at New Consensus, the think tank charged with fleshing out the deal and other progressive policies. Law 10. Rep. Policies aimed at achieving zero emissions have historically targeted mid-century for two reasons, according to Dr. Noah Kaufman, who studied pathways to decarbonization on the White House Council on Environmental Quality under President Barack Obama. First, climate scientists generally believe cutting emissions by 80% to 100% by 2050 would allow nations to collectively prevent global temperatures from rising above 2 degrees Celsius by 2100, the headline goal of the agreement. Beyond that threshold, second, a longer timeline allows reductions to occur without major disruptions to the way companies and citizens go about their business. The 10-year target, Drummer confirms the Green New Deal would phase out all fossil fuel and nuclear plants, though he said it would be done responsibly. Drummer points to the UN. Intergovernmental policymakers and scholars tell CNBC a broad, overarching strategy to combat climate change is necessary, and they welcome the attention that Ocasio-Cortez has brought to the issue. Kaufman does not doubt the nation could drive emissions close to zero in 10 or 20 years, provided the United States treats climate change as a national emergency and reaches political consensus. However, currently, only some parts of the country, like California and Texas, are seeing renewables go from playing a marginal role in the power system to a meaningful role, said O'Sullivan, the MIT researcher. Renewable energy sources generated 17% of the country's electric power in 2017, according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration. Hydropower, meanwhile, nuclear power plants generated 20% of the nation's electric power and 63% of its zero-carbon power. Scaling up wind and solar power would require replacing hundreds of thousands of miles of transmission and distribution lines with high-voltage wire, in addition to outfitting the infrastructure with sensors to create a smart grid. O'Sullivan said the United States is nowhere. In 2011, the Electric Power Research Institute estimated the cost of a national smart grid, including storage, at $338 billion to $476 billion. EFRI said the grid, even at today's modest levels, rapid deployment of renewables has created technical and market complications, said O'Sullivan. California solved these complexities. The Green New Deal also requires installing systems to store energy when the wind does blow and the sun does shine. The United States currently has 1.4 GW of installed energy battery storage capacity, and it's on pace to grow that capacity to 4 GW by 2023, according to energy research firm Wood Mackenzie. That pencils out there. That's where the Green New Deal's vision for electric power intersects with its transportation sector goal of replacing all internal combustion engine vehicles with electric vehicles. The dominant Wood Mackenzie forecasts that under current conditions, annual electric vehicle sales will reach 2.9 million by 2030, accounting for 16% of all lightweight vehicles sold in the United States. Getting to 100% around 2030 would be a huge jump, and one that raises serious geopolitical, humanitarian and environmental concerns, said Ravi Magai, Director of Storage Research at Wood Mackenzie Power and Renewables. That's because lithium-ion batteries rely on. There are serious concerns about the lithium-producing nations. Meanwhile, lifting EV sales from 16% to 100% by 2030 would require a roughly 5 to 6-fold increase in mining, Magai said. He is concerned that one solution is to prioritize new battery technologies that use less cobalt, and certainly, the Green New Deal calls for mobilizing the nation on a scale similar to World War II and the space race to accelerate innovation. Still, Drummer acknowledges that some technologies, like zero-carbon air fleets, are unlikely to emerge at commercial scale over the next decade. He added this. Share this video. Got a confidential news tip? We want to hear from you. Sign up for free newsletters and get more CNBC delivered to your inbox. Get this delivered to your inbox, and more info about our products and services. Copyright 2019 CNBC LLC. All rights reserved. Data is a real-time snapshot. Data is delayed at least 15 minutes. Global business data also provided by. Your browser is not supported. The requested video is unable to play. The video does not exist in the system. We're not able to play this video if an ad blocker is enabled. Please disable your ad blocker on CNBC and reload the page to start the video.
Raindrop, drop top, top smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park pot.